So the question is about the annual increase in disability and pensioners' benefits, and the fact that a higher proportion than is handed out is actually taken back to pay for social care.
Towards the social
I know
care.
that in some of the boroughs within London, and certainly in some of the other areas in the country, up to 75% of your disability living allowance in total can now be taken off you to pay for your social care.
That's right, you've got it right.
Obviously it's a problem that we're all having.
I think it's a big problem, and I mean, one of the troubling things that the Conservatives have said, they will take £12 billion out of the welfare budget in the next 2 years, and there was a leaked report recently suggesting one way they might do that might be to tax disability benefits, which I think would be a very, very retrograde step if they did. But I think there's two things that are going on. One is local authority funding has been very substantially reduced, and so local councils are passing that onto their customers or their users, and that's why costs are going up in the way that you describe. I think in the end, the answer is to bring together the health service, which is free, with the care service, which isn't. And I think if we were to run the two things properly together, then we could overcome some of these difficulties, and some of the care could then be provided as alongside the health service, which we don't pay for at all. And we could avoid the sort of inefficiencies which arise at the moment because the two services barely talk to each other and are managed completely separately. So I don't think that will solve the problem overnight, but I think we need to be very clear that is the direction that we should be going in, bringing together the health service and care service to work properly together in a way they certainly don't at the moment.
Thank you.
So, the Green Party is very committed to supporting people who need social care, and we have a commitment to provide free social care for the over 65s. On top of that, we would not close the Independent Living Fund, and we would help support disabled people keep all of their benefits that they're entitled to. So if the Green Party got into government, you would be better off than under any other party. And we believe that it's, if someone is earning a lot of money, then they should pay from all of that wealth and income to support people who have had disadvantages in life, those at the bottom of the pile. Whereas at the moment what we're seeing is people at the bottom of the pile are expected to pay for everything. So I want to see some justice here in our system where the poorest are paying for the mistakes of the richest who are growing ever more wealthy. So I'm very proud that the Green Party is committed to providing free health and social care. And I would actually agree with Stephen here, who made a very good point that at the moment social care is provided by local councils and healthcare is provided by the NHS. This doesn't make any sense. What we need to do is bring the two together, and then we can make sensible decisions about what budget to allocate where. And if we bring the two together, we cannot charge for those services. I think that is wrong, and I'm committed to fighting for free social care for everyone who needs it. Do you mind if I answer this question? I'm very glad you've raised that point, because there's some disinformation being given out here, and I want to rely on the facts. Okay. Now, Labour left us not with a £3 trillion debt, but correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, what was left was an original debt of £800 billion. Okay? And what happened was George Osborne said that he would be able to start working away at the deficit, but he couldn't. And we now have a debt of £1.8 trillion. Okay? That is the actual figure. All right? Now, what we need to do is we need to grow the economy. And that helps us if we create more jobs, we bring in more tax. And if you look at what's happened in this country before, okay, at the moment we have a debt that is 80% of our GDP. Okay? Now, if we go back to just after the Second World War, just as we were about to create the NHS, we had a debt that was substantially bigger. It was 250% of GDP. And what did we do? We invested in our wonderful NHS. We created the welfare state. 20 years later, our debt was 30% of GDP. And what we've seen here in the last 5 years is the coalition's inability to understand basic economics and to manage the economy in a way that contributes to our growth as a nation and the support of the most vulnerable. So we're still behind where we were in the economy in 2008. We haven't even caught up yet to where we should be. And the Green Party, with our Professor of Economics, who's an elected MEP, Molly Scott-Cato, predicted that that's exactly what would happen. So we have a very sensible plan to tackle the deficit, to tackle the debt, but also to grow our economy, because it's the government and small businesses that create jobs. As a small business owner myself, okay, I know how to create jobs. And it comes from small business and government funding, and that's what the Green Party are committed to do.
So if you give me a moment, could I let Paul and Samia actually answer the lady's question as she asked it first, and then follow on with your answer. So I'll give you both 6 minutes so that you can answer both questions together.
Thanks, Joyce, for that excellent thing that you've raised. I mean, it's completely dark. I mean, no common sense person would agree that it's a good thing to pay people one amount of money, increase a certain disability payment, and then take it away with the other hand. I mean, all that does is provide lots of jobs for more pen pushers in the government, dealing with the welfare system, unproductive spending. It really is daft. I think everyone would probably agree with that. In terms of the social care and NHS budgets, the minister responsible for this, Norman Lamb, is a Lib Dem minister, and he's taken the first steps towards this. He set out how it can be done, but it does require a certain amount of decentralisation of decision-making authority in the NHS. The NHS decision-making authority is very, very centralised, and even if you look at what appear to be local decisions, they're always made under the auspices of the NHS nationally, micromanaging every decision. So it's really very difficult. It's very difficult to implement integrated social care and health budgets of the type necessary to deal with the problem, Joyce, that we were talking about. It's very difficult to implement that if the NHS is managed in a sort of a monolithic, sort of quasi-Soviet national structure. It has to be decentralised, and budgets have to be decentralised, and people have to be able to make decisions locally. And only then is it really kind of practical from a day-to-day point of view to provide the sort of individual budgeting and care decisions which are required. I mean, when my mother was very poorly and had home care visits, three times a week, it was kind of haphazard. It's very difficult. They kept running out of money and all this sort of thing. It was a bit chaotic, to be honest with you. So I think those are reforms which are kind of work in progress, and whichever government comes into power on May the 7th, they are going to have to probably concede that the NHS and social care budgets will have to be decentralised. Well, I'll say I am actually, and we as a party, very strongly against this idea of taxing benefits for the very same reason. I mean, giving with one hand, taking away from the other. All that does, it provides lots of unproductive jobs in in Whitehall and not much more. So I definitely support what Steve said about that.
I'm going to try and twangle two points together, a couple of issues, because obviously it's very interesting that Stephen talks about exactly the point that I was going to make and what the Conservative Party have been making about joining up both health and social care. And it's interesting that after Jeremy Hunt in his conference speech in 2014 talked about this, the Labour Party had now dawned upon the idea, but didn't think about this in 13 years in government. And in fact, the reason why, you're absolutely right, the reason why we lose so much money and money is getting lost through the system is because what was happening is there was so much red tape and so much bureaucracy, all the social care people were tangled with and completely separate from the healthcare. So literally they were like operating completely two different systems, and which is why, again, in our 8 billion or what we've said in the NHS, we want to join up health and social care. So that when you are getting your benefits for disability, as the NHS is free, at point of use, it will also be free for your social care. And that's the plan, that's the costed and funded plan that we're talking about. But just trying to cover up on a couple of other points that came back. And I know the Green Party said they want to create more jobs, but again, you've got to question the judgment on this. You want to out-tax any wealth creator in this country, anyone that's making any money, any businesses that are making money, yet you want jobs to magically appear. The NHS is not going to, on its own, create enough jobs to sustain this economy. That's the reality. Now, we're all against aggressive tax avoidance, and just for the record, there have been more prosecutions under this government since 2010 than there were under the last government. So I'm not trying to say, you get big companies that are trying to, take the money out of the country, but we cannot get away from the fact that companies that earn money create jobs, and that's just another side issue, which was slightly, moving off the issue. And I know you talked about the professor of economics, and you said that you've got, one of your MEPs who predicted, what was going on, which was going on. But I'm sure, looking at the levels of borrowing and the way that the Labour government had absolutely no contingency plan to get out of the mess that we were left in, I don't think you needed a doctorate to work that out. But the reality is, and let's talk about the NHS. And just one final point, since we're on the NHS. I mean, the reality is, on the 8th of May, the Prime Minister is either going to be, it may take a bit longer, I know it took about a week last time, but the reality is the Prime Minister is either going to be David Cameron, or it's going to be Ed Miliband, propped up with Nicola Sturgeon on his right shoulder. Now, if that happens, and you want to see what's going on with the NHS, let's just take a look, for comparison's sake, and I did this the other day with Stephen, at the difference in the NHS where the Labour Party are running it and where the Conservatives are running it. And let's look at Wales and let's look at England. So let's look at patient satisfaction, which is, Stephen, I'm sure these are published figures. So where Labour are in control of the NHS in Wales, patient satisfaction is 51%. In England, where we're in control, 65%. Let's talk about A&E waiting times of patients that are seen within 4 hours. In Wales, 81%. In England, again, higher, 90%. Urgent ambulances are waiting, arriving within 8 minutes. 51% in Wales under Labour. In England, 72% under Conservative. Now, we want this to be 100% and we want every target met. But the reality is that you need the economy, you need the funds, and you need the money there to back this up and some strong leadership. Now, we're doing our best, and we hope that if we can put this 8 billion in, we'll make it a lot better.
Can I just make one very quick? I mean, anyone who knows anything about the health service knows it's got far worse over the last 5 years under the stewardship of the current government. One of the worst things they did, before the election they said they wouldn't do a top-down reorganisation, and as soon as they were elected they introduced a top-down reorganisation that cost £3 billion, and things have got a jolly sight worse. It made a terrible hash of things.